Happy Easter to everybody. Welcome to the ADHDads podcast. I'm JJ.
And I'm CJ.
Hey man, how are you doing? How's Easter going for you? How's the Easter weekend, spring break, all that stuff? What's what's the latest in the family wild and crazy spring break, streaming straight through into the holiday, and then, whatever else is happening in your world.
It's been exhausting, brother. I think I overextended our family this spring break here. We had a lot going on, 2-week spring break and then Easter here and family visiting. You and Cohen came out and we did a 5-day run of theme parks, beaches, and zoos, and got some bonding time with the kids, which is totally worth it. But man, am I tired, I'll tell you.
Yeah, man. When we flew back, not only did I get less sleep, which you guys experienced the same while we were there. I got less sleep the last couple nights that we were there. We didn't want to. Kids' disruption of their regular routine is something that happens on vacation, especially when you go to a theme park that says, we're going to do fireworks at night, which is 2 hours past your kid's bedtime. Hope you have fun the next day. We definitely experienced less sleep, and then we had to get up really early to go flying back home and go. I don't know what it is about that kid, but he kept trucking through the whole day after we got back. We're jumping in the pool. I'm just trying to fall asleep. Practically fell asleep in the hot tub while he's playing. Yeah, it didn't stop for him, but for me, man, I was like, oh, I want this kid to take a nap because I wanted a nap.
Yeah, it was it was tough, man. When you left too, we had a cold and flu run through our house, so we were just all buried under covers, and there was snot everywhere, and so our immune systems were definitely traumatized from the experience for sure. But I think it's a great segue into what we're talking about today, which is expectations, man. Because we had all this month of planning to get all these kids and got them all excited for all the things that they wanted to see and do. And we're a Disney annual pass holder, so we go pretty frequently, man. And out of the last 100 visits to Disneyland with every intention of seeing the fireworks, we've maybe only made it 2 or 3 times.
So what is an expectation like when it comes to that? Because I know we wanted to stick around for the fireworks. I think you all had a certain expectation that was a likely scenario, given that now you have guests who are coming. Cohen's first time at Disneyland. Well, my first time at Disneyland as well. What was that going into that? And then when when we're reaching the end of the day and we're all running on fumes, us parents are just like, what else? What is the expectation you have in your head? Like, how do I get through this last moment? How do we reach that point of making that work for everybody? And do we give ourselves some grace there, or set some realistic expectations?
I think it comes with setting the expectations very low, JJ, and making sure that we communicate that with the rest of the party, because we went into it with the expectation that, yes, we are going to see these fireworks. The last 3 times that we took the kids to Disneyland, we said we were going to see the fireworks. One of them was for Naomi's birthday, so we had a whole group of girls with us that wanted to see the fireworks, and it didn't happen, It just so when we went with you, we were like, dang sure we're gonna see these fireworks, because we missed it the last 3 times. And so I think I set the expectation very low of, this is gonna be hard, there are gonna be some challenges, and we're gonna have to, it's not gonna be the cookie cutter rainbows and sunshines and Tinkerbell flying across the sky. That'll happen, but we may not be enjoying it as it does.
Well, let me ask you a question before we get into how do we set expectations, but how did it go? What is your feeling going back on it? Because for me, of course, I'm truly on vacation, but we're hanging out at your place every night. We're going to the parks that you have annual passes for. How did it go?
Now that everything is said and done, and I've wrapped up a week of solitude under my covers with a head cold, and I've had time for self reflection. I mean, honestly, I think it went great. You know, I think it met all of the expectations, but there were those challenges. Excuse me. I think the perfect story to describe how I think the weekend went was when we finally did go to make it to go see the fireworks. You know, we were seeing the show that happens before the fireworks, Phantasmic, on a different part of the park, and the kids couldn't quite see the show that was going on, right? So, you know, I tried to do the dad thing and put them up in a position, you know, that they could both see. So I had both kids on my shoulders, man. I had one on my left arm, you know, and one on my right arm, and I was just lifting them up with both of my arms, just struggling. Okay, got to make it 15 minutes of this, you know, and my back was giving out. I could feel the cramps setting in and the heavy breathing starting, you know? And I had to readjust at one point, you know. I had to set them down, and I put Naomi on my shoulders, and Aubrey was in front of me on my wife's wheelchair. You know, she's recently diagnosed with lupus and makes getting around the theme parks a little more difficult. So she has her wheelchair, and I've got Aubrey standing on the handles of the wheelchair as Naomi's sitting on my shoulders. And I'm just holding Aubrey's legs to my chest, just bear hugging them, trying to support her weight. And oh man, I'm going through that and trying to do that as long as I can. And, you know, I got to switch again. So I switched the girls. Naomi's on the wheelchair and Aubrey's on my shoulders. And, you know, I've been reading a lot of Dave and Goggins books lately, JJ, you know, about, you know, this guy that runs these ultra marathons and on broken shins and his toenails are falling off and he's got, you know, frostbite on his toes as he's doing these 100-mile ultra marathons, and, you know, the mindset that it takes to get in there. And, you know, I'm like, how can I apply? That's great. I don't want to run ultra marathons, you know, but how do you get it? How can you tap into that mindset, you know, that extreme way of thinking as a dad, for the intentionality that we want to have and the memories that we're trying to create? So I'm just sitting there like so proud of myself, JJ, like, oh man, I'm killing it as a dad. You know, these kids are going to be so grateful. Look at me over here. I'm just like, oh, the pain means nothing to me. I'm in my zone, making sure these kids are having a good time, killing it, you know? And then Naomi in front of me as I'm holding her goes, I'm not comfortable. I want to go on your back, you know? I said, I can't do that, sweetie. There's people all around. I can barely hold, you know, up right here. Like, it's 5 more minutes. Let's just wake it, you know, make it. She goes, you don't care about me. You're not even thinking about me. You don't care if I'm having a good time. And I just deflated, you know, just. And my wife was the one that called it. She was like, that's it. We're out of here, you know. We started dragging the kids out of there, and meltdowns are ensuing, and we're the family that's trying to get out in a hurry, you know. Mama had to pull, you know, our little neurodivergent child aside, and we had a talk, and we ended up finding a nice place for the second half of the fireworks show, and it all worked itself out, you know, with some life lessons and some patience. But I think that was just a perfect example of, man, we break our backs as dads. We try so hard to ensure these kids aren't going to experience any of these hiccups, and they have the most wonderful time. And sometimes it can not even register on the brains of our little ones, huh?
Yeah, I mean, that was true for my side of things with Cohen. You know, some of the stuff I think when you go into a vacation, or, you know, go into, you know, something kind of out of the norm, from your schedule with your kiddos and kiddos with ADHD, you know, there's certain level of expectations that or certain things that we want to prompt them with, so they're aware and they understand what to expect in some ways. But we don't want to, of course, like stick to a strict schedule, because then we're going to end up disappointing everybody, probably especially ourselves. But, you know, with that in mind, there's all those little moments that we can't specifically predict. And like, that's what you experienced. We got to a spot that looked really good when we first got there. And then we realized there's actually other human beings. They're going to file in, and they're going to file in front of us. And then we're going to have our kids down here. How do we get them to be able to see? Well, now Samson's got to be called up and carrying all this weight on his shoulders in order to make this work. And so there you are. You're like, well, I got to shift. And you, like you said, you set your expectations to a certain point. And the rest of that was, I'm going to go with what I know, what I understand about myself. Sorry, I don't know why my dogs are acting up in the background. I didn't expect that, by the way. And then, we go with it. So with me in the same moment at that last, that Fantasmic before the fireworks show, Cohen wanted to be on my shoulders for good reason. And I told him, I said, I can put you on my shoulders. I didn't have 2 kids to put on my shoulders. So it was a little bit more realistic expectation for me to hold up 1 kid. But you had asked for my assistance right when I was putting Cohen on my shoulders. And you said, before you do that, and I'd already got him on my shoulders. And then I started to pull him off. He did a vice grip with his legs around my neck because he didn't understand what was going on. So he's pulling on my head. I'm trying to get him off my shoulders. And then I get him off my shoulders and he starts crying. I mean, he is crying big tears. He goes, "You hurt me." And of course, my initial thought and response was, well, if you would have loosened up the dang grip on my neck, maybe we'd not be in this position. But either way, I helped you. And then I took him off to a different place to kind of help him soothe a little bit. In the back of my mind, I'm like, this kid, if he would have just listened to me. So wasn't good communication in that moment. But then we got back to the show, and it was going on. Honestly, I didn't see much of anything except for a spray of light up in the in the sky here and there from what was going on down in the water. And they have a pirate ship that comes in, and the characters are on it. It's a pretty epic show. But of course, what's on a pirate ship? Cannons. What's one thing my son is really sensitive to at any given moment? Loud noises. So then, boom, we started hearing the cannons, and he just started crying, like his tears are falling on me. And I'm like, all right, we got to exit again. So we exited, and he took a while to kind of calm down. And in those moments, I'm not expecting at any given moment that my son's going to break down and struggle, but it was a long day. There was a lot going on, tons of energy, tons of carbs and sugars being shoved into a little kid's body. I'm prepping him, or I'm setting him up for an emotional breakdown at some point. So it was bound to happen. It's just in those moments, sometimes I'm not expecting that particular moment. How do I adjust? How do I set myself up for realistic expectations with my kiddo? I think in some ways it was a great success. And in other ways, I thought, well, I could have done better here. I could have done better there. But in the grand scheme of things, when I look back on when we were talking about coming to your place and hanging out for the week and going to the beach and stuff, I didn't put expectations on it that would have prevented my son from having a good time regardless. When we were walking out, like you said, possibly leaving the park because of what was taking place before the fireworks show, Cohen's like, "Where are we going?" I said, "Well, I think we're leaving." And he said, "Okay." And he was good. But then we shifted and we went back to the fireworks, and he was thrilled with the fireworks. Either way, because of the week not having too much of a, meticulous schedule put in place that I was going to present him with, he was along for the ride in many ways. And there were many times too where he said he didn't want to go on this ride. He didn't want to go this ride. Maybe I'm ready to go home. Even at like noon, he said that one day, "I'm ready to go home." And I said, "Well, buddy, we're actually with our friends. We're going to do a bunch of fun stuff, including this and that." And he says, "Well, I don't want to do that." I said, "I understand. The group's going to do that. We talked about doing this as a big group. So we're doing this with friends as well. So we're going to check it out. I think you'll end up liking it." And his expectation at that point, I believe, I can only assume for him, was that, we're going to do the next thing, and then we're going to take it easy, and we're going to have fun, and we're all going to be together. And that was as far as he was going with it. Then he got on a ride, had a blast, and he's like, "I want to do that again." And I told him, "Well, we could do one, and then we got to go on to the next fun ride." So I kind of kept going back to the idea of how can I expect to make this work for Cohen? I didn't try to oversell anything. And that really helped us succeed in day to day. And overall, the week was a success. It did not go as planned. Man, we also went, listeners, to Universal Studios Hollywood. And they recently opened Super Nintendo World. And my son is obsessed with Mario. And when we got there, we found out that everybody else wanted to go there too. So if you wanted to hit 3 coin blocks, well, you can wait 30 minutes to hit 3 coin blocks and then move on to the next thing and buy this and buy that. And next thing you know, you spent $200 on top of your ticket just to hit a couple coin blocks. It was a little bit bonkers, but the kids had fun, I believe. Cohen at some point actually even said, I'm ready to go to the next thing. In Super Nintendo World, the thing that he had been talking about all the way up to the point of going on the vacation. So his expectations, honestly, he was pretty mature for the most part in handling what he was expecting. So it was good.
Yeah, and it's funny because when we plan these huge family vacations and ordeals where we spend our life savings to fly out and go to Disneyland and Universal and buy the Super Mario bands, and,
you're hurting me here.
Yeah. We as families, we have these such high expectations that this is going to be the golden trip. We're going to remember this for years. Everything is going to go smoothly. We're going to go to this ride and then that ride and then see this show. And then we're going to go over here and eat at this place and get this treat. And it never works out like that. You get to the theme park and you realize it's another, $80 for the band to interact with the 3 blocks that you've got to wait a half an hour for. And, by the time that you get through 1 or 2 of the things to do in that section of the park, your kiddo's had it and wants to move on. And you feel like, well, geez, we just spent 4 months planning for this and all these things you want to do. And now we're here and it's too hot and too busy and you don't want to do it, And so it always seems to go a different direction than we intended, So I think that you're right in saying that, having a loose structure with your expectations when you do these kind of things is really the way to go. I'm somebody that gets carried away with we got to hit this ride and we got to do this ride and then we're going to go over here and do this. And, my wife is always the one that kind of reels those expectations back into, there's 3 of them and there's 2 of us, honey. When they outnumber you, you got to relinquish a little bit of control.
That's a great point too, and I want to just kind of come back to that from my perspective as well. It's like when the kids are involved, the kids definitely try and find their own way to control their situation. And if we try to control it for them, what does that kind of look like sometimes? Well, it could look like tantrums. It could look like fights and stuff. And now you've found how they're going to try and take control is they're going to look out of control. This is their attempt at trying to control the situation. Well, if we then escalate it further, we look back on it later. We find out, I wasn't in control then. I actually lost control there. And that actually set them up for controlling me even more because generally speaking, when we yell and say, all right, well, we're done, we find ourselves kind of telling a little bit of a lie. We're expecting that that's going to work, but that usually comes back to bite us awfully quick. Because one, typically we don't, follow through. Like, especially, let's say it's like 10:30 in the morning. We just got to a park and we're like, all right, that's it. We're out of here. Well, we're actually not saying that because we believe it. We're doing it as a veiled threat because we want to somehow gain some control over the situation and get back to the expectations that we might have set for the day. That is not a good idea. But I do want to kind of highlight something that was really remarkable in that. Was that when I allowed myself to just kind of let the situation be, I saw amazing bonding take place between kids that only have really seen each other over, Zoom a brief period of time, and that's it. And they just connected and they talked about being family, extended family, which was just awesome to hear our kids say that about each other. That was remarkable. In addition to that, like you said, we're going here and we expect certain things because we're working with kids. We're here with kids because we want to make memories that the kids cherish. And what happens? We cherish those memories in return. That happens as well. My son's mom, I was sending her pictures of Cohen, and just enjoying the various parts of the parks and time together. And she texted me. She said, "Thank you so much for giving this to him. He's so happy." And I thought, yeah, what I'm doing is I'm extracting moments from the day, showing just how much fun he's having, and that's recognized. So I am allowing myself to say, this is going to contribute to the overall happiness of everybody's day by allowing him to just be in those moments. And when I'm in those moments with him, those are usually the moments that are most successful, the happiest. And I've lowered my expectations because I'm not trying to drive his moments as much as I'm allowing him to be himself. That's awesome. And in addition to that, one moment that was really a big highlight for me, and I feel proud as a dad, is, Cohen has had a lot of reservations about some experiences, especially things that are loud and big and maybe a little bit kind of fantasy. To him, they're foreign and they may be a little scary. So you went and got your picture taken with that big velociraptor at Jurassic World. And I asked Cohen, I said, "You ready to do it?" And he said, "Oh, no, I'm a little scared." And I said, "Well, okay, buddy, this is probably our only chance to take a picture with him in case you want to do it." And he said, "No, I'm good." Well, then there was the Jurassic World ride over here, which he saw the people coming down. He's like, "No, I'm out." Well, the kid is a huge dinosaur fan. So I was kind of like bummed for him that he didn't want to experience that, because we're not going to be back there next week. But later on in the day, he said, "You know what? I want to go see Blue." We were in a totally different area of the park. And I said, "You know what? Yeah, if he wants to try this out, let's make it work." So we went, and he got a picture with Blue, many pictures with Blue, and he loved it. And then he said, "I want to do the Jurassic World ride." I was like, are you sure? And we got in the line, and we got on the ride pretty quick. And right away, there's like these giant, ferocious meat-eating dinosaurs in your face. They're loud. He's got his headphones on, and he's feeling pretty secure. He's doing well. We get to that big drop where you got the T-Rex and the other one right in your face, right before you do the huge drop. We go down the drop, and he hits the bottom, and he goes, "I can't stop laughing." He had a blast. So what did I do? I didn't place some sort of expectations on him to that he must do it, and then I take control of the situation saying, "No, we're going to do this. You're going to have fun." Instead, I said, "Okay, buddy, I understand." Felt a little bit bummed, but then just let it be. And then later, he came back to overcoming that fear and made an absolutely amazing memory that he wanted to relive over and over right away. And that's because, honestly, I think because I allowed him to take charge, to take control, and expect from within himself something for himself, rather than me saying, "All right, I expect you to do this, and now you're going to have fun."
Yeah, no, that was a really cool moment because, I know that Cohen loves dinosaurs. Every time I've seen him on Zoom, he's playing with some dinosaurs and giving me some dinosaur trivia. So, I thought that would be a big part of the park that he would enjoy. And you had kind of been talking about his excitement, talking about Blue and the dinosaurs and stuff. So when he didn't want to do that, I could see the disappointment in your eyes as a dad, like, "Oh, man, we had just spent the last 3 months, building up this expectation of this. And then we get here and it, he had a little bit of hesitation, but I thought that was really cool that he garnished the courage to go over there and do that after all. We were talking about, I told you a story about when I was 6, 7 years old. My grandparents made a deal with me one summer that, if I had filled up this piggy bank, that they would take me to a theme park of my choice the next summer, either Disneyland or Universal. And man, I've always been a huge, movie fan, and Universal was the place I wanted to go. They had the Terminator ride, and they just built the Jurassic Park ride. So I was like, "Dude, take me to Universal. That's where I want to go." What I didn't know is that my grandparents thought that, they did that one thing where you give a choice to a kid of one option that you think they're going to choose and one that you think they're not going to choose. And I chose the one that they didn't think I was going to choose. They thought I was going to go to Disneyland. What 6 or 7-year-old doesn't want to go to Disneyland?
We got this.
Yeah. The next summer rolls around, and my cousin was coming out too to do this. So he was part of that same deal. And he wanted Disneyland. I wanted Universal. It was a big thing that my grandparents were trying to convince me, Disneyland's better. Don't you want to see Mickey? And they have all these rides and all this stuff to do. And I was adamant, man. No, I want to go to Universal. You told me I could choose. So we end up going to Disneyland. I didn't get my way. And, I was so resentful for my family for that for years, man. I took that into my life as the story that I was telling myself of no one listens to me, just like Naomi on my shoulders. No one cares about me. No one's thinking about me. No one cares about my opinions. And we got to Disneyland and I couldn't take a picture with Mickey Mouse. I was scared of Mickey Mouse. Imagine how I would have been with the Velociraptor at Universal or the T-1000 at on the Terminator ride. I would have lost my shit. My parents made the right call by having some sort of expectations on the trip and what I could do and what I wanted to do versus what I actually could. So man, walking around at both of those parks when we had all the kids with us, it's like 30 years had finally come back full circle to that memory. And I go, oh man, my parents may have had it right there by trying to protect me from the scary stuff at Universal here, But again, the stories we tell ourselves, man, so.
And it's tough. It's tough too, and I feel for anybody who is trying to not only, create memories and have a good time with their family, but then when they invite another family to join them, having to navigate the expectations or just the wants of the kids. There was a moment at Universal where Scooby-Doo starts walking by us, and Cohen's like, I want to meet him. Like, sure, let's meet him. So I just took him and ran off to where the Scooby-Doo and the gang was, and we took pictures with them and stuff, and you guys kind of hung around, and I was very grateful for that, because I don't think that that's something that everybody would feel they could do. They would be like, well, I expect everybody to stick with the group. And so I was just really glad that, we had such a good, back and forth and, again, like we talked about expectations even leading up to this vacation. And I think that really set us up for some great success. Still, of course, we also expected to be stressed and tired and beat up and, just kind of done, but still, at least we understood that that's what we were going to get ourselves into at a certain point. So that helped a lot. And your memory does make me think of something that I experienced a few years back. It's definitely not to the level of disappointment that you probably felt in the moment. But my parents decided they wanted to get all of their kids and their grandkids that could come on this vacation to South Dakota. And honestly, South Dakota, not a lot of kids of a certain age are going to be like, oh my gosh, South Dakota, I can't wait to go discover America. They're like, I want to do all the fun, high level, like technology vacations, something maybe on the beach or whatever, middle America and, upper Midwest. Maybe that's not quite of their interest. So we all sat around this big table. There was over a dozen of us. There were over a dozen people sitting around this table. Most of them were, in their 20s or younger at the time. And the first night, my dad says, okay, not everybody's going to want to do what everybody else is going to want to do. Some people want to do something. Some people want to do something else. It's going to be, it's going to be what it is. And we got to be okay with that. It's okay that you're not going to be interested in everything. Well, I think it was the next day we went to one thing, and then we were talking about going to this other site that was like a historical site, with like maybe museum stuff or maybe some trails or hiking. And my niece said, yeah, I'm not really interested in that. I'm not really interested in history. And then my mom says, well, I just wanted to let you know I'm disappointed. And I was like, wait a second. What about the expectations talk we had just last night? Now we're going the other direction and everybody's going to feel like crap. Now nobody wants to go to this history spot. We all want to just kind of want to go to our own places and stuff. So, oh man, you can either make or break a vacation depending on how you follow through with expectations. And that was a challenging week.
Well, if I really think back to all the greatest memories, in my Rolodex in my head here, the ones that stand out the most are the ones where expectations weren't met and maybe something went haywire. And that's the thing that sticks out, right? And how we handled it and what went wrong and what we did in spite of it, because, it's fun to remember the wave running or the jet skiing that you did, right? And those are good memories and they're fun and that you think about. But I think, what are the more powerful memories is the time that you went on vacation and there was that hurricane and you had to stay in your Airbnb instead of going out to the theme parks or doing all the jet skiing. And what did you guys do instead of that? And how did you cope with that unexpected thing that came your way? And though those moments are challenging and they may not always feel like bubbles and sunshine in our head with memories, I think that, again, if we can show up in a healthy way and turn it around despite all the chaos, that's where we really forge some powerful memories that kind of grow our family and kind of dictate who we are, right?
Yeah. Gosh, man, I remember hearing the conversations where your wife was basically trying to create the next plan, the next thing we were going to do, because she had the app, and that was very helpful for us, navigating through the parks. And I remember a couple of times where you had said, well, if we do that, that's on the other side of the park. And, that creates a little bit of tension, a little bit of, unease in trying to figure out the day. And then, of course, one person does take ownership over the schedule for everybody, and that can be difficult for them. It can put a lot of pressure on them. And then we kind of let it be, and we went up to, what was it, Toontown in Disneyland, and we just let the kids kind of run free for a bit. And it was awesome. It was so good. We got to kind of just sit back as adults and talk about how things were going. And we got to see the kids just playing on, honestly, like slides and stuff. A lot of things you could do anywhere, at a park. And yet these kids were like, I'm cool, I'm happy. And that's nice to just do the unexpected, like you're saying. Let's just do something that we didn't have planned, because you never know what could result of it. And honestly, those kids were happy just simply being themselves around a ton of other kids. So yeah, again, I think the expectations that we set forth and that sometimes we blew straight through, we ended up finding out was part of a successful day. Would we be able to replicate that next time? No. But would we be able to create another awesome day? Absolutely. I was curious about that. Oh, go ahead. You had something to say.
Well, I was just going to ask, like, what does establishing expectations look like for you? What does it mean? Like, how do you go about thinking about that?
Well, I mean, as we do talk about expectations and what to do with with kids, especially who are growing and changing and development. You mentioned Cohen. Yeah, he does have a huge love for dinosaurs. He's drastically shifted into loving Nintendo and Mario, to the point where dinosaurs are taking a back seat. But still, he ended up loving the dinosaurs thing. So I think one thing that I'm kind of trying to get at here is that expectations are some things that will have to continue to adapt and evolve, and I have to do that as well. So I don't want to start to create such a strict expectation or outlook on what's coming ahead, because it's going to change. And then there are some things that I can expect. So with that in mind, I do have a kind of a brief list of things that could be useful for parents out there with kids who have ADHD and summer vacations. Just a few tips. And
JJ's tips and tricks, my favorite part of the episode.
Well, I mean, it is nice to talk about it, and especially go back and forth, because I know you're going to have a lot of great feedback on this that I've missed, which is, again, part of the growth, that a mindset that we have as parents, adults, and especially parents of kiddos with ADHD, and guys who also have lizard brains going on at any given moment. We are definitely flexible with our expectations. And I think that gives us a huge leg up on the people who try and curate the entire process of vacation. So here's a few thoughts, a few tips. They're not in any certain order or anything, but I think they might serve people well. So this is specifically with kiddos in mind on expectations with summer vacations. And you can use it with camp and stuff as well. But I'll just go through a few points. Get excited, dude. That's one of the big things. It's get excited, but do it within reason. Don't start creating all these big lofty thoughts in your head. Oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, because then you're going to find out that you're creating a sort of self-defeating, situation for yourself, because it's not going to happen exactly as you want it to. So
that within reason part, I think, is the part I need to really concentrate on.
Well, okay, example is like Cohen loves trains. He still loves trains. It's not as big as it was 3 years ago, but he still loves trains. And one thing he had talked about, of course, what's at the very start of the park, or the very front of the park is that train. It's going by. The train tracks are right there. He talked about that from the moment we got to the park. What did we not do that day? We didn't go on the train. We didn't do that. We were excited about it.
That's right. We missed the train, man.
We did. And that's one of those things too, where it's like, especially if you're at the Florida park, you're like, I want to sit on that train for a while because I'm dying in this humid heat. Who builds parks here? This is insane. So, we missed the train opportunity, but he was okay. He did fine. So we got excited about the train, and I kind of told him, I said, we do have a lot of fun things we're going to do today, and we're going to definitely try to get to the train. There's a chance it might not happen. And he did not in any way start to complain about that. He complained about other things, but it's okay. We talked about that earlier. So I think, getting excited, but within reason is really important. I'd say create a schedule, but again, that's a schedule that's flexible. It's not a schedule that says we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. For example, buddy, we talked about how many things we were going to do while Cohen and I visited. I think we missed a few of those, and that's that's okay.
Yeah. My wife again had to pull that within reason part. She kept having to remind me, they're only here for 5 days, right? And we're going to 3 theme parks, and you want to go to the zoo and the beach.
And you know what, buddy, is what I just gotta highlight this for you and for the listeners out there. Your response to that is one of gratitude and understanding. When she says that, it's not one of like, well, I'm gonna fight you on this, and if she brings out the phrase "I told you so," your response is not in anger. You guys have a very good communication style with that. So the expectations back and forth are very healthy. And when you are told that, and it's like, it didn't happen, you generally come back with an attitude of gratitude. And that's a phenomenal way to have those types of interactions. Yes, go ahead.
I've gotten pretty good at recognizing some of my quirkier expectations, and so I think I've gotten pretty good over the years at having a little bit of grace and being like, yeah, you're right, I did that again, trying to do too many things. That's what I love about my relationship with my wife, is we have a very clear understanding of each other, and it comes
awesome.
with a lot of love and patience. So thank you for saying that means a lot to have you notice that and appreciate that. And she has to reel me in quite often, JJ. So I'm okay with that.
Well, I'm inspired by and in admiration of what I've witnessed when I was with you guys. It's a very powerful thing to see that type of exchange. And again, even if one of you is a little upset at the other for how things maybe are playing out, I see so much effort to come back and show grace and love. And man, that is something that every relationship could benefit greatly from. So good on you, man. But I did want to pause because you said a quirky expectation, and I would love to hear an example of what a quirky expectation is from you.
Well, just like what we're talking about, you wanted to come out for 5 days. I wanted to take you to the beach and to the Dino Alive exhibit, and we were going to go to 3 theme parks, and I was going to smoke up a pork, shoulder for you, and we were going to invite some other dads over. And like, when are we supposed to fit all this in? I get you're excited, but pull it back a little bit.
Oh man. And one thing that I love is that I think about the times to come. When I think about the things we didn't do, it's like, oh man, just think about how much more quality time experience we're going to create in the future. And even if some of those things never come to be, like, that does not in any way take away from the awesome relationship that we have now. So my expectation is always that I expect of myself to be there as a friend, as somebody that honestly feels like family when I come over. And just be present. Like that's one of my biggest core values. It might be the most important core value to me, is presence. And that was what filled my cup up. And if we didn't get to all the other things, dude, I expect to be present for others because I can only control myself with expectations. And that honestly, I was, awarded with so much as a result of that. And so I truly thank you guys for the amazing hospitality and cleaning up all the messes that the kids created, some very unexpected. We don't need to go over the details, but it got a little gross, guys. It got a little gross.
Well, we all have different expectations in our different roles going to this, right? I mean, you're coming here from out of state. You want to make sure that, your money is well spent and that your kiddo is having a good time. And you also want to be respectful of our living situation and space. And, you're trying to navigate that. And my wife is over here trying to play the ride master and set us up for the next ride we're going on and have the map and kind of, designing the day for us as she's in a wheelchair dealing with a lupus flare up and, isn't 100% on her game. So she has expectations that she's set with Naomi and wanting to stay for the fireworks, but she's also battling with her body and her own expectations. And, I'm running around with the chicken with my head cut off, making sure that you're having fun and the kids get the treats that they want and that my wife is comfortable in her wheelchair and that everybody's got water and that we're all going to be fed and, that everybody's got medicine and, So, we all enforce these different expectations on each other. And, a lot of the time when families go out on these vacations and these super, epic adventures and meet up with other people, we oftentimes those expectations butt heads and we don't communicate them, because we're too busy caught up in our world trying to deal with our own expectations.
So I do want to, I know I have the list I was chatting about, but I do want to kind of circle back around something I think is really important to kind of talk about a little bit. And I'm asking it of you because, you said something that resonates with me, is that sometimes, with our expectations, we have a realistic expectation for the situation, and then somebody wants to, dare we call it, please everybody. You didn't use that phrase, but sometimes that's what it feels like. It's like, I got to make sure they're happy, I got to do this and that. And then we find ourselves being hard on ourselves because we're expecting too much of ourselves. How do we, while we did have a successful week, how do we kind of rein that in so we're also being realistic toward ourselves and not being hard on ourselves? Because again, of course, the only person we can truly control is ourselves. If we're showing others that, oh, I didn't get this done, I just didn't do the things I wanted to do for everybody, and not everybody's happy. How do we battle against that? How do we accept that we actually are doing a great job? I mean, we just talked about it. Like, actually looking back on the week was pretty good. Cohen had a great week, and I know there were breakdowns and meltdowns and stuff, and things didn't go exactly as we expected or thought they'd go, but we still looked at it as successful. What is it about coming back to ourselves and still saying, like, oh, I want to do this. I'm not making everybody happy. I want to please everybody. How do we manage that?
I had a few moments as we were kind of walking around the parks and the kids were giving me some defiance, and some of the things that we were trying to organize. I think I had a couple moments where I was kind of walking next to my wife and said, like, God, I'm just trying to make sure everyone is having fun, and no one seems to be having fun, And she was very supportive in her verbal affirmations of like, you're doing great, honey. Like everyone's having a blast, like this is just it, So I'm very thankful that I have a partner by my side that I can kind of, ricochet those insecurities off of, and she can kind of help me filter it in a more healthy way. But, when I think of expectations and how I kind of go about organizing them in my head and behaviors is, I think I kind of more concentrate on the fallout if the expectation isn't met. What do I do when everybody else is melting down and doesn't want to go on this ride and wants to go home early, or we've wasted the money, or, how am I going to show up? Am I going to be frustrated and yell, or am I going to say, it's okay, we can do that another time, or we can go here instead, or let's compromise, or let's figure out how to communicate a compromise to the kids, without raising my voice or tone. So when I think about expectations, I often think of it in a twofold thing of what am I expecting to happen here, and how am I gonna show up when it doesn't?
Yeah, so uh, that's fascinating to me. Like you, especially with something when there's multiple people involved, uh, if there's a goal that you're trying to achieve at the end of the day, like, is that something that is measurable? Maybe not. Maybe the proof is in the process, like just going through the day and letting the day be. Is that something that actually provides us with the success that we might feel, instead of saying, like, if this doesn't happen, the day is a failure. If this doesn't go this way, then I've done this wrong. What
Yeah.
about, like, just kind of sitting back and having appreciation for the process, letting it be, and having a sense of gratitude and curiosity about it?
I think the mistake that a lot of us make with expectations is that we place our expectations on other people. And I think the goal of this conversation is setting the expectations on ourselves and our behaviors and reactions, because that's the only thing that we truly have control over. The day is going to go wrong. It could rain. You're going to get the curveballs. The ride could be closed down, which has happened several times to us, you know. So you can't place the expectations on the external. You really have to internalize it again. And how am I going to show up, or what am I going to do when we don't hit all the rides, when the expectations aren't met?
Yeah, I've heard it said before that expectations, especially when placed on others, are just premeditated resentments, because you are expecting something that you can't necessarily achieve from somebody else. So that's something that kind of, I think, if we can keep in mind, especially if we're trying to influence our own happiness through expectations, we're going to end up finding ourselves disappointed more often than not. We're going to be self-defeating in the process, right? Because we're going to find ways to be disappointed, because perfection is not something that exists. And sometimes with expectations, we want to see a perfect outcome. So we're going to find ourselves already disappointed. And when we place that expectation on somebody else, we're basically, giving ourselves a good shot at resentment.
I like to think of expectations as hope with a backup plan. you know, I hope for this outcome, and I expect it to a certain degree because we spent all this money and did all these things. But I think really, again, the core work is like, well, what am I going to do when those behavior expectations aren't met? And again, I can't control other people's behaviors, or the expectation on the behavior, but I can have a lot of control over my own behavior and how I'm expecting to show up when that behavior is tested.
Like you said, you're completely out of any sort of control when a ride breaks down. But you do have a sense of influence over your party that you're with, the kids that you're with. Rides down. I mean, I can't make it start up again. That's out of my control. How do I help, everybody and myself navigate through this? I mean, when we boil it all down, it's about our relationship and how we've worked through those relationships, and manage our own expectations in the process of, like you said, hope. I can hope for something. How do I achieve, what hope looks like? I nurture those relationships. Yeah, that's beautifully said. And man, I think, again, I saw that a great father operating in that space very well, while I walked next to you, and sometimes felt felt my skin crawling when kiddo wanted to do this and that. But at least I had somebody also helping navigate that ship with me.
So, follow-up question, I guess, is,
Yeah.
how do we show up, or what do we do when expectations aren't met?
So are you asking expectations on ourselves or on others?
Well, that's a good question. I think let's try answering both. you
Hmm.
know, how do you normally see people show up when expectations are placed on other people and they don't? Because for me, I think that the resentment piece is easy go to, right? That's like a default of expectations aren't met or boundaries are crossed, we resent, right? And we don't talk about that. But if you set an expectation on yourself and you fail that, what does showing up look like, or what does an after action review look like then?
Mm. Well, I mean, expectations within ourselves, I think you could look at it maybe a little bit different, and similar to what I also said earlier is like the process. Look at the process. If you create some goals for yourself, that's great. Well, let's train ourselves to be aware of what it takes for us to grow toward those goals. Let's not place expectations on the outcome, but rather the growth. Because if I say, well, I'm going to get in shape and I'm going to lose 10 pounds in the next 2 weeks, I mean, that sounds like a pretty unrealistic expectation. Are you setting yourself up for disappointment, or are you going to create some process to work toward that goal and be proud of yourself along the way? That's going to work really well in your favor. You're not going to be able to be, an Olympic athlete in a short amount of time. So let's be realistic about it. And then in terms of like, well, whether it's relationship with others or with yourself, I think there's certain things that we have to do to kind of keep everything in mind and in focus. Like for one, it's just simple. I think an overarching theme in what I'm going to say is that, you can only control yourself, right? So as soon as you create an expectation that involves somebody other than yourself, what are you asking? Are you asking the world to conform to you? How do we get the world to conform to our expectations? We can't. We can only control ourselves. So, kids act out of control because things aren't conforming to their expectations, and they're acting out as an attempt at gaining control. But still, that's a falsity. Or, if let's say we're talking about prayer sometimes is an expectation. It can be. There's no guarantee it's going to go that way when we pray for something. So if we're praying in gratitude and appreciation in the process and asking maybe for, I guess, some growth in the process, I think our prayers will be answered in a much more clear way. So keeping those expectations realistic based in the areas how you can control or what you can control within yourself, that will help you find a way to that happiness and gain that hope and feeling proud of the hope in the process. Okay, if you're going on vacation and you expect the weather to be great, well, probably should expect that expectation to be blown out of the water. We had random
Especially
rain,
if
and then
you're
if
going
you're
to Florida.
yes, sir, I was going to just say that. If you expect the kids to behave and get along when you're all doing things together, well, then you're setting yourself up for disappointment. And again, like going back to what does expectation mean for me internally? Well, if it's something that you haven't actually mapped out, you're going to end up in a place of self-defeat, because it's just not realistic at that point until you can map out steps along the way. And there's even going to be step 1A and 2B or whatever. There's going to be more to it than you expected. If you don't map it out, you are in a state of unrealistic expectations at that point.
Yeah. So how would you differentiate between an unrealistic expectation and a realistic one?
I think the thing is of course, first would just be experience, but an unrealistic expectation would be, I am, and this is also a form of manipulation and attempt at control of somebody else. Like, I am doing this and then expect this in return. Because I'm doing this, I should expect this in return. That's a covert contract. That's not something that's fair. That's manipulation and control. And again, like you're basically suggesting somebody do something because of who you are. Well, you can control yourself as soon as you let that go, let that out there. Now it's on them to control themselves. You can have influence, and influence is great if you truly mean it. If it's a truthful exchange and it's of honesty and love, there could be some influence there, but still creating an expectation around that act is now a covert contract.
Yeah, I really like the piece that you're saying about the process and the structure of it, kind of pre-planning for the unexpected expectations that may arise. Um, when I think about realistic expectations versus unrealistic ones, I think the unrealistic ones are, everybody's going to have a good time and everybody's going to enjoy themselves 100%. And, when it gets a little foo-foo like that, as when think it becomes unrealistic, where a realistic expectation, again, if I can gear it towards a mindset of like, how am I expecting myself to show up, And for me, it was as the problem solver. I was expecting meltdowns and I was expecting hunger fits, and that's why I had a little pre-plan to that. I had my little fanny pack full of my fruit snacks, and, when we went for lunch and the kids wouldn't eat their carrots, I was taking carrots and stuffing them in my pockets. And, later on when we were sitting in lines and the kids are, halfway through the line and they say that they're hungry, boom, who's got some baby carrots? I expected this, I planned for this shit, I know it's going to be cold, so we got to bring an extra bag and put all of our blankets and comfies in there and get a locker because we're going to be freezing by this time. And I know JJ's going to burn, so we got to have the sunscreen. So those are the expectations for me, is like, what can I think can go wrong? And then how am I going to problem solve or show up when that does? And of course, I don't think everything. We went and we had some rain one day there and had to walk through a little bit of dampness, and those unexpected things always come out of nowhere for you, but I at least feel more prepared and stronger when they do. And I have thought of those things, and I've got the bag of carrots or apples in my pocket, for everybody. And I can keep the day rolling to we get closer to that unrealistic expectation of everybody's having a good time, because I thought of all the realistic expectations that need to be taken care of.
And that is a master at his craft right there. I grew up, buddy, with a family that kind of said, well, we'll figure it out. And that, for somebody who has anxiety issues, that's just like, that's deadly. That's deadly words coming at you. It's like, oh, we'll figure it out. Okay, well, that means everybody's going to be at each other's throats at some point here. I remember so many times we drove around for an hour. I remember one time trying to find a place to eat. Oh, yeah, we can go there. No, I don't want to go there. Oh my gosh, it could be a nightmare when you go it, and just kind of see how it goes. Having a certain plan, but then again, like where I think I learned some valuable lessons from my parents is that, if you plan for the unexpected, then you can't more easily be disappointed too. So, hotels have done a great job of having, the toothbrush available for you if you forgot your toothbrush and stuff. So we've got certain ways to kind of navigate around some of the expectations that we forget of ourselves. Even though I made an awesome checklist, buddy, you were the one that pulled out the carrots. I didn't pull out anything. I was thinking, well, if Cohen gets hungry, we'll just go to, A or B, option. There's tons of options, but what do they serve at most of these options? The quick options. They're not healthy food. So I'm basically setting my kid up.
In sugar, dipped in sugar.
Yeah, we got beignets, and Cohen, like before I even noticed it, he already ate like 3 of those and he was asking for more. I'm like, all right, well, this will be an interesting later part of the day. He's going to have a tantrum because now I'm expecting it, honestly. So yeah, you did a really good job of helping us out through that. I don't mind the idea of, seeing how it, plays out in some ways. But if I'm just completely relying on that, I'm going to probably be much more anxious throughout the entire day.
So can you run us through that, those tips and tricks that you have? Because I know we went on a few tangents and I want to kind of condense it down into kind of a bullet point thing for our listeners here. So do you have
we'll create a show
that
notes
you can read off to us? Yeah.
Yeah. And, I always love it when we come back to that, where we realize we went on a tangent, because that's one of the beautiful things about our talks and our episodes is that we do just kind of let ourselves talk free about things, and we kind of come up with some
neurodivergency.
Yeah. We come up with some amazing things when we don't, stick to a script all the time. So let's see, where was I at? So like creating a schedule, but being flexible to kind of build on that, especially with your kids who have ADHD, is like prepare them mentally by talking about some of the plans. So we did some of that. We talked about, maybe just a day. We're going to go to, the market. Oh, that's not open at the market. Well, that's okay. The donut shop was open, so we were good there. But, we kept preparing them for certain things. We were going to do this. We were going to try and do this. And then we talked about some other things kind of on our own without the kids' involvement when it came down to like specific moments of the day. So they knew what was going to happen. They had their iPads with them in the car so they could kind of just focus on, their individual selves. And then, we said, okay, there's going to be this going on throughout the day. We're going to try and do this. We got to eat food stuff. We kept it very loose, but the kids were excited enough. I mean, like I said, Cohen wanted to do Super Nintendo World. We talked about that a lot. We were, excited. I told him, I said, dude, so many people are excited to go to Super Nintendo World. It's going to be really busy. So there's that. We got to keep that in mind, but we're going to have fun. We're going to go see it. We're going to be right there with the Koopa Troopas and the Thwomps and Bowser's going to be up here and Mario's going to walk by us and all that stuff happened. And Cohen was excited about it, but I didn't say, like, Cohen, we're going to do this and this and this and this and this. The whole day's going to be planned out for you. I kept it realistically for him. So he was prepared mentally, but he wasn't expecting something to the point where we were going to disappoint him. So that went really well for us. And I know the crowds were insane. So prepare your kids mentally. Create a set of rules and stick to them. Honestly, I didn't do a very good job of that sometimes throughout that trip. It still turned out okay. And I think the thing that I want to just point out too is when you're doing a trip, you're doing vacation stuff, it's a little bit out of the ordinary. But when you create a set of rules for that vacation, make sure they're kind of still aligned with what you do at home. So it's not throwing your kiddos off, especially with, kiddos with neurodivergence. We do want to create structure at any point we can for them because that helps them feel safe and secure and gives them the opportunity to understand where they're at. When you throw them in Disneyland and there's kids everywhere and it's easy to just run off in a different direction, having that set of rules ahead of time will really help save you and them from a lot of pain that could possibly happen. Luckily, I think we managed that for the most part. I know there were a couple times where I did the bad parent thing where I more or less said, well, if you do this and, if you continue doing this, then this. And I don't think that's good to, shell out a veiled threat, but I was guilty of that.
Yeah, we had a few of those, we both did as parents, we both had a, get in line or we're not going to stay for the fireworks kind of conversations.
Yeah.
And it only took a couple hours into the day that the kids figured out that those were damn near empty threats. And,
Yeah.
we had no plans on enforcing them really.
And they're so Jedi amazing at this stuff that they don't sit back and think, oh man, I just realized I got control in this situation. No, they just already are in control and they just go with it.
Yeah, I could see Naomi's brain working of, what do you mean? The last 3-4 days you've been ingraining in my head how important it is that JJ and Cohen get to the park and get to see all these things and do all these things.
Mind.
You're really gonna tear them away from the park? Yeah, right, Coley.
Oh man. Smart kid. I love that kid. That's amazing. And man, that's stressful too. So, one thing that we kind of just ignored, but with ADHD kids, maybe it's okay sometimes. I don't know. I wrote, make sure you still have time to rest. I did not get the rest I needed. I don't think Cohen did either.
That's what we forgot for sure.
Well, they set it up for you. It's like, okay, the cool night shows, well, they're at night. So, bedtimes are just going to be destroyed. And, one thing too, I got to say, like, we create a space of, chill for us when we give them the devices at the end of the day so they can stick to themselves and they're not, in their, in this space where like, oh, we're just going to fight because I don't have anything else to do. We put him in the devices, but you know what? My kiddo doesn't go to sleep when he has a device. So he was up really late. Yeah, he could have gotten more rest. But then again, like I said earlier in this episode, we get home and I'm just dead and he's still like playing in the pool and stuff. So I don't know, maybe this is an exception for me, but I still believe making sure you make time for rest is of the utmost importance. So anyways, the last point that I put is, like what makes your child happy, special, and loved? What makes them feel that? I can say continue to support that through vacation. When we're
easy
running
to get
around
off track because there's so many things and so many people, It's easy to forget about maybe how your little one is kind of analyzing this new space and new
Yeah.
rules and new environment and new family and people.
Yeah. So, I mean, highlight that. Like, when we're trying to make everybody happy, sometimes we're making everybody miserable. Like, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do this, and the kids are like, I just want to do this. I'm happy. And sometimes we try so hard that we're ended up making it hard. And I think that there's there are apps for the individual parks anymore, so you can essentially create a schedule for your day through those. Now, those aren't 100% reliable, so we have to kind of give ourselves flexibility again, like go back to the other points, through that process, and be appreciative and grateful of the process. Toontown was the great example that I can give from that. Is like, we got all the kids up there, they're running around on equipment that Disney has themed to themselves, but you could still find this anywhere else, and the kids were happy and we were relaxed. It was a great example of how do we get back to the point where we're just happy, everybody's chill, we're not placing expectations on ourselves to do this, to do that. We're just in the moment, we're appreciating that moment. The proof is in the process.
Yeah, good stuff, JJ. Really appreciate all the tips and tricks and information that you gave us today. I was expecting this episode to not go as good with your shoddy internet. So
Oh,
I was
man.
not disappointed. We made it work. See how I kept my expectations on the low bar there? I was not disappointed. We rocked it, man.
It is funny, though, that we are going to go and talk about expectations today, and an hour before this episode, my internet goes out. And so I'm hijacking another internet right now so we could record this. Yep. Never know.
See, you problem solved. You went through that process, man. You expected to show up as the problem solver. Love it. Well, thanks, guys, for listening. And not to worry, we will put JJ's tips and tricks in the show notes, along with that weird David Goggins book I was talking about. So all of that info will be there for you. And thank you guys so much for tuning in to this. I hope you didn't expect too much and were disappointed. But please like, subscribe, share, comment. We love hearing from you guys. We love hearing feedback. So please engage with us and share this podcast with another listener or a parent or anybody else that maybe has a neurodivergence, because we love kind of adding tools and information to our arsenal. So thank you guys for listening. We always appreciate the support. I'm your host, CJ.
I'm JJ.
And until next time, this is the ADHDads.